We have more exciting things to tell you about. In particular, the Dr. Gordon Hirabayashi Anti-Racism Project. Collaboration with communities is a vital way in which universities such as ours can contribute to the betterment of our society. Dr. Gordon Hirabayashi, a former chair and professor of sociology at the University of Alberta, was a trailblazer of such engagement, an accomplished scholar and administrator for whom social justice was a defining issue. Dr. Hirabayashi played an important role in securing redress for Japanese Canadians who suffered internment during the Second World War, and even afterwards, unfortunately. And he advocated passionately for Canada's Indigenous peoples as well. I'm delighted now to introduce two longtime supporters of the Prince Takamado Japan Centre, who will tell us about an important community partnership that they helped initiate and that the PTJC began to support several years ago, thanks to the leadership of former director of the Centre, Dr. Aya Fujiwara. The partnership is the Gordon Hirabayashi Anti-Racism Project. As our two speakers come to the stage, allow me to tell you a bit about them. Immediately to my left is Dr. Olenka Bilash. She is professor in the Faculty of Education and a leading scholar in several fields of practice, including immersion bilingual pedagogy, Aboriginal language education, and heritage international languages. A forceful advocate for Japanese language teaching and education about Japanese Canadians, she is the Honorary Consul General of Japan in Edmonton. In 1996, she was one of the founders of the PTJC, and she has remained a constant guide and champion of its efforts. And to her left is Oliver Rossier. He is the director of the Office of Research in the College of Social Sciences and Humanities. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in History and Political Science and a Master of Arts degree in Communications and Technology from the University of Alberta. With over 20 years of post-secondary administrative experience, he's been an unflagging facilitator of research initiatives and centers like the PTJC.
Welcome. How do university campuses and communities come together to address some of the most pressing and challenging issues facing our society? What have we done in the past? Are these examples to follow? And if so, who are these examples and what are their successes? What is the role of organizations like the University of Alberta in addressing some of society's grandest challenges? Can we, as suggested by Indigenous elders like Bert Auger, listen, acknowledge, accept, respect, and build relationships with community partners? Our partnership required searching for common values and concerns. We brought together expertise and know-how of the University of Alberta, faculties of education, arts, PTJC, departments of sociology and drama, and eagerness to learn, with EJCA, the Edmonton Japanese Community Association, its organization, leadership, curiosity, reflection, and its eagerness to learn. And a third partner, the support of the funding organizations, which we will describe later. Over time, this community-university engagement partnership built following key principles, such as starting from the community's own needs and priorities rather than those dictated from outside, information sharing so that the community can make informed decisions, mutually beneficial, respectful, reciprocal relationships are critical in promoting and advancing shared values. Professionals are provided with training and support in a range of new skills, including relationship building, conflict resolution, negotiation, communication, and knowledge. Collegiality, transparency, and open communication were at the core of building this relationship. Care. In November 2020, several months into the COVID-19 pandemic, the Edmonton Japanese Community Association put out a call for assistance to address a disturbing rise in anti-Asian racism. A campus community partnership was formed with members of the EJCA and the University of Alberta, with significant support from the Prince Takamado Japan Centre, the Faculty of Arts, and the Faculty of Education. The PTJC played a critical role in this partnership, as it is uniquely positioned as a center for teaching and research on campus that connects with the community and that focuses on Japan and Japanese Canadian cultural and social issues and solutions. The result was the creation of a committee called CARE, the Committee Advocating for Racial Equality.
Okay, and I want to give a shout out to Paul Fujishige. He's the one who put that call out. He's the president of the EJCA. He's really the reason that all this got started. So Gordon Hirabayashi was the lighthouse that we found when we looked for examples of how our societies had fought racism in the past, how we had fought for civil rights in the past. And it was a beautiful thing because he was not only part of us, the U of A, but he was also part of us, the Japanese Canadian community. We very quickly came to a consensus. He was going to be the person around whom we could build a new initiative fighting racism and building community. He was one of the founding professors of the Department of Sociology at the University of Alberta and a very active member of the Edmonton, Canada, and US Japanese communities for many years. His story began in Seattle, Washington, where as a student, he defied the government's curfew and forced internment orders during World War II for Japanese Americans. As a result, he was charged, found guilty, and sent to prison. Essentially, he wanted to go to a library, and he got caught on a curfew trying to get back and forth between his dormitory and a library. 40 years later, with new evidence that there was no military reason for this exclusion order, his case was retried, and in 1987, his conviction was overturned. Isn't that amazing? For us was, how do we find these champions? Where are those links between universities and communities? In 2012, he was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama. You know, as a team, we dug into all kinds of things. We dug into the University of Alberta archives, which is an amazing resource for scholars and students from all over the world. We regularly recruit top scholars to come here because our library is second to none. We found all kinds of information there. He was a faculty member for 25 years. He was the second chair of the Department of Sociology in a turbulent time, the 60s. Is that where one of our ambassadors was learning how to play guitar? I don't know. Somewhere around there. We've got a letter from Harvey Cron, a former colleague of Gordon Hirabayashi, talking about his tenure as department chair. During his tenure as chair in our department from 1963 to 1970, he built it into one of Canada's leading sociology departments. He hired many of the professors who put our departments on the international map. He actively promoted both high-quality research and teaching and created a new laboratory to create a research institute inside this brand new department at the U of A. The graduate program became one of the best in the country based on the foundations of his work. His career and lifetime of service was spent fighting for and championing the civil liberties and rights of ethnic minorities, including the First Nations people and Indigenous people in Canada. He used the University of Alberta as his base to launch all kinds of initiatives.
And so we began searching for funding to support this project. And these are some of the ideas we put forward. We were driven by the desire to bring wider recognition to such an inspiring and courageous leader from our own community. And we created the Gordon Hirabayashi Anti-Racism Project. The objectives are fourfold: to showcase the work and leadership of Gordon Hirabayashi in advancing human rights, minority rights, and social justice; to draw connections with Gordon Hirabayashi's academic and social contributions and where we are today; Third, to employ Gordon's example and the successes he achieved as a springboard to challenge systemic racism and advance social betterment, uplifting individuals and communities. And fourth, to capture and build on the community-engaged research partnership and the goal to weave together diverse perspectives and collaboratively redress social injustices. The project began with two major initiatives. First, to stage the Alberta premiere at the University of Alberta of the play Hold These Truths, written by Jeannie Sakata. I hope many of you have seen it. And second, to create a comprehensive directory of Japanese Canadian curriculum resources for elementary and secondary teachers and students based on the Alberta Program of Studies.
Hold These Truths was actually written by a California playwright. Gordon Hirabayashi is actually much better known in the United States than here. Jeannie Sakata wrote the play and performed it in several parts of North America before coming to Edmonton. So that was one of the sparks with the committee. We thought about, how can this be that a person who lived and worked here for 50 years was not celebrated here, this play was not here. So we overcame a number of obstacles to bring the play here. The pandemic, among many other things, but we staged 4 live productions here at the Tim Centre. The play was directed by U of A drama professor and former chair, Melanie Dreyer-Lude. It was performed entirely by a single actor, Canadian actor Kevin Takehide Lee, with shadow puppets and 2 voiceless traditional Japanese characters called kurokos. Nihongo ichi nensei dake desu kedo, ganbarimasu. In addition to the play, an online Hirabayashi Anti-Racism panel discussion was held and moderated with local television producer and reporter Serena Ma. The participants included our Paul Fujishige from the Edmonton Japanese Community Association, playwright Jeannie Sakata, Renee Vaugeois from the John Humphrey Centre, and Aya Fujiwara, former director of the Prince Takamado Japan Centre. So, a year and a half later, given all the obstacles of the pandemic, we were able to bring the play in its screenings through the rest of Alberta. We held screenings in Edmonton, Calgary, and Lethbridge. And this was another one of the strategies. Bring together Alberta. Bring together the Japanese Canadian communities in Edmonton, Calgary, and Lethbridge. The Edmonton screening was held in conjunction with a conference organized by the John Humphrey Centre to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Jeannie Sakata and Kevin Takehide Lee traveled to Alberta. Their flights from Calgary left just as a blizzard was arriving. Like, it was literally, we could see the storm clouds coming in, and I was, please get on the airplane, it's gonna be okay. That went extremely well. We were so grateful to our community partners, and I think Maureen Coleman is here from the Calgary Japanese Community Association, so thank you so much. Also, a shout out to Deanna Oye, the leader of the Lethbridge Nikkei Cultural Society, because it was definitely a provincial-wide team effort. There were over 500 people. We brought this play, this story, to over 500 people. And because we do this with multiple purposes, we raised over $12,000 for graduate student scholarships as part of the Gordon Hirabayashi Graduate Students Endowment from over 90 University of Alberta alumni and friends. A big shout out to them.
The second project was a directory of Japanese Canadian resources for use in schools. Throughout 2022, the University of Alberta faculty and teachers in the public education system collaborated to identify points in Alberta's K-12 curriculum where Japanese Canadian issues intersected. A committee of teachers and community members from the EJCA then went through the selection process, choosing resources appropriate for each grade level and adapting them for the classroom from K to 12. The directory went live in spring 2023 and is hosted on the EJCA website. It is a rich and varied repository of resources containing fiction and nonfiction, picture books, novels, plays, memoirs, and historical writings. There are links to websites containing archival information, animated features, and interactive online museums. And of course, the play, Hold These Truths. Alberta students are not required to learn about the internment of Japanese Canadians during World War II until grade 11 social studies. So apart from that, there is little content in the curriculum that exposes learners to this cultural community that is a fabric deeply embedded in the fabric of Canadian society. The hope for this directory is that if every teacher in every grade could use just one resource a year, students would have a touchstone with Japanese and Japanese Canadian culture, such that we would create a through line in their education about Japanese Canadian culture and contributions. For example, for grade 6, the directory cites the Japanese Canadian History Elementary Resource Guide, a set of lesson plans aimed at understanding issues of human rights, racism, and the history of the Japanese internment in Canada. This past year, presentations have been made at teachers' conventions in Alberta to promote the directory, with attendees from Greater Edmonton, Fort McMurray, Red Deer, and smaller rural communities in central Alberta. The digital resources were very appealing to teachers in more remote communities who didn't have access to large libraries. We will continue these presentations in 2025, especially thanks to Terry Rolfson. Terry, thank you for all of your work in making this possible.
We try to be multimodal. We have archival research display panels. We created archival display panels that we used, and in fact, they were hosted at the Consul General of Japan's office in Calgary for over 3 months. And it's another way that we try to share knowledge and put it into new venues. Thank you very much to the Consul General of Japan in Calgary office. In 2022, research was conducted for the first time on the 5 boxes of archival records from Dr. Gordon Hirabayashi, and we found a lot about his work at the U of A, EJCA, and many of his articles and research projects around Japanese Canadian redress. This information and this research done here at the University of Alberta has really contributed to the limited information about his work and filled in some of the gaps about his projects here and around the world. Now, we're going to talk about the inaugural Gordon Hirabayashi Annual Lecture. On October 3rd, next week, in collaboration with our friends at the National Association of Japanese Canadians, and their president is here, Les, thank you so much for your engagement and your contributions. Pamela Sugerman from Toronto Metropolitan University will be the inaugural speaker at the first annual Gordon Hirabayashi Lecture. It's led by the Prince Takamado Japan Centre, the Office of Vice Provost EDI, the Department of Sociology, with support from the College of Social Sciences and Humanities. This year, also led by the Prince Takamado Japan Centre, we created a video. It was with support from the Japanese Canadian Legacies Community Fund. An Edmonton local film company called Gorilla Motion Pictures has produced a documentary film. They're in the final edits. But we do have permission to show this trailer. It really highlights Gordon's work, his contributions in Canada, and has personal interviews with over 16 people who either knew and worked with Gordon or who have a connection to his legacy here at the U of A or in the Japanese Canadian community. I think it's a powerful narrative of the influence one person can have based at university, working with community. The full premiere will be, we hope, with all the edits finished, ready for next week. We can play the trailer now.
Professor Hirabayashi, this is just an amazing person. The internment camps, the defiance.
He was a visionary, someone ahead of his time.
His legacy was not widely known until quite recently.
In some ways, he's lost in history.
Gordon wanted to correct injustices.
Gordon wasn't afraid to challenge the law. He wasn't afraid to challenge the state.
I took a stand and I can't give it up.
He changed people's understanding of what human rights are and can be.
He was a forerunner, and the reality is we need them. We need the champions of civil society.
In Gordon's words, it takes a crisis to tell us that unless citizens are willing to stand up for the Constitution, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
I'm just building on the work that he has done.
Someone who's got such a legacy, why is he so unknown?
He doesn't stand out in some people's minds in terms of being a major historical figure, and yet he was and is to this day.
So on behalf of the entire team that brought the Hirabayashi project together, we'd like to thank all of the organizations and individuals whose support, from grants and funding to communications and in-kind contributions, made all of this possible. The Canadian Race Relations Foundation, National Anti-Racism Fund, the Government of Alberta Multiculturalism, Indigenous and Inclusion Grant, the National Association of Japanese Canadians, the Edmonton Japanese Canadian Association, the Japanese Canadian Legacies Fund, the Office of the Consul General of Japan in Calgary, and from the University of Alberta, the Prince Takamado Japan Centre for Teaching and Research, the Faculties of Arts and Education, the Departments of Drama and Sociology, Tim's Innovation Fund, and the President's Fund. We really could not have done this project without the enduring and generous support of PTJC, which was crucial in helping us build long-term relationships with the Japanese community. We're so grateful to be here today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of this wonderful center, which serves as a pillar for Japanese studies, research, and teaching right across Canada and beyond. To everyone here today, please let us know if you would like to help us raise the profile of Gordon Hirabayashi further. We're open to suggestions or assistance getting his name on public buildings, bridges, or parks, or to other ideas for ensuring his legacy is remembered and his values honored. Perhaps today, together, we can find more ways to celebrate this great human rights champion. Thank you.